It's 6 o'clock already and we are about starting immediately. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming to this episode of Safety Podcast with Waliola. Oh yes, we are about to start immediately. Thank you for joining us on today's episode where we're discussing about lot of safety related issues. Remember, it's either we are safe or we are not safe. And if we are not safe, definitely we can enjoy the purpose of why we are living on this beautiful earth. Safety is paramount. Safety is everything. Safety requires an active approach. Without that, we will just be playing around with our lives. If we can count in ones, in twos, in threes, we will see, we will remember this is our third episode of Safety Podcast. This particular discussion is going to go a long way because it has to do with a lot of issues that has to do with our homes. Safety of our homes. Essentials of safety in our homes. What are those things that we need to look at when it comes to safety in our various homes? There are a lot of things that can happen in our homes, and we can't emphasize or overemphasize on them. But then we have safety professionals here with us who are here to help us in knowing those things that could lead to serious issues, accidents, injuries, or ill health while we live in that our habitat that we call our home. There's a common saying which is prevention is better than cure. It will actually cost you less to prevent an accident from happening in your house. As little as you listening to us on this episode, as little as you using your little data to know those things to put in place. But when the accident happen finish, when the accident happen finish, me I no go there that time. Oh. So if you know you have loved ones that are on social media, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on Instagram, anywhere, send them the link, tell them to come and hear about safety of their house. Oh. So many people have lost millions of naira, many have lost thousands of naira because of a little accident, or they have spent a lot of naira, lot of millions because of a little accident that could have been preventable if they knew what to do. And this is what we are doing here today, where we have safety expert Mrs. Marian, who is one of our guests that we had in our last episode. He discussed with us about waste management. We have Mr. Oveje Emmanuel, who also discussed with us about waste management in our last episode. Today, we are having another new safety professional who is very sound in the aspect of health and safety, Miss Zainab. Miss Zainab is here with us. So these three professionals, together with my little self, who knows nothing but to keep learning from everyone, will be discussing with you today about the essentials of home safety. Thank you for your patience. Right about now, we start and kick off immediately. My name is Waliu Adegoke, that local boy from somewhere inside Songota in Ogun State, Nigeria, and today we are having another beautiful episode of Safety Podcast with Waliola. Today, we are going straight into our homes. There are a lot of things we discuss on Safety Podcast. We discuss about the nature, we discuss about the nation at large. We discuss about world issues at large. We discuss about Africa. We discuss about different states. We discuss about issues that are happening and at the same time we discuss about what is happening in our various homes. So to start this episode, we'll be discussing about the essentials of home safety. But today we'll be focusing on the first part of it, which is the issue of fire. Fire is one of those things that has led to millions and billions of naira. Last year, Lagos State gave a record that they lost 9 billion naira just to fire alone. Imagine 9 billion naira being lost to fire. That 9 billion could build as much as 10 standard hospitals. In our homes, a lot of accidents have happened from just little things that could have been prevented, and that's why we are discussing about this part of home safety, which is fire. Like we said, we'll be focusing on the issue of fire, and we'll start from Mrs. Marian. Mrs. Marian, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you there, Miss Marian? Are you there with us?
I'm here.
Yes. Please, over to you. We would like to know from you, as one of our speakers for today, what we talk about fire. People don't know what can actually lead to fire. They are not sure. They just make guesses. What are those things that can actually lead to fire in our homes?
Okay, thank you very much. We all know fire basic. Not to go too technical, we know what fire is, but what starts the fire? So in our homes, there are a couple of things that can lead to fire. The regular one we know, cooking. That's like the most common one. So whether you cook with a gas or stove or firewood or whatever, they can all lead to fire in the home, especially when you leave it unattended. And if it has to do with oil, in Nigeria we are fond of maybe bleaching oil or cooking with overheated oil. When the oil is heated up, it can become a source of fuel, and then of course in the presence of oxygen and then combustible materials, it becomes fire. Another thing is the wires that we use for electrical appliances, the integrity of the wire. So if the wire has a cut, like there's a circuit inside, we might not be aware if a part of the wire has cut inside, and then when there's a power surge, we know that we experience a lot of that in Nigeria. That's why a lot of us use stabilizers and power surge equipment in order to contain the excessive flow of electricity where it is not planned for. So in terms of wire, we need to ensure the integrity of the wire we use, how good the wire is. If there's a cut, should it actually be changed, or do we just bind it with sellotape? There's something called trunking or piping. So when we have exposed wires in our homes, do we trunk it? Do we cover it, a kind of protection to prevent the wire from being open? Because if the wire is open, constant moving and all that can lead to the wire tearing. Also, overloading. Do we overload our equipment? So you have something that's supposed to power something, maybe 13 amps or something less, and then you overpower it, one extension cable, everybody is charging all the electrical appliances in the house there. Overloading can lead to fire. Then our generators. We've all heard that when we go to filling stations, don't use mobile phones in the generator, because mobile phones are not intrinsically safe. That's why we are not allowed to use it. So sometimes when people are going to switch on the gen or put off the gen as a source of light, they put on the torch on their phones in the generator. Or sometimes if the generator is running, you feel you want to refill the fuel, and then you just open the tank and then you pour your fuel inside. The heat and then the fuel itself is fuel. In the presence of oxygen, we have fire. Then bad electrical equipment. So sometimes we have iron at home that is bad, or electrical kettle or toaster. Some of these electrical equipment that we use at home, if it is bad, just remove it, because you're trying to manage it and use it for something else. You don't know if there's a circuit inside that is actually spoiled. Probably that's what led to it being bad. So you keep managing it, or you keep using it for something else. You never know. It might just lead to a fire. And then there's a controversy between receiving and making calls in the kitchen. Because phones are not intrinsically safe, some school of thoughts believe that receiving and making calls in the kitchen can lead to fire, while some people say no. There's a science behind that. In order not to go in depth, we advise people not to receive or make calls in the kitchen, because if you're using a gas and the gas is leaking, you might not know if the gas is leaking. So if it is leaking and then you're using the phone, like I said, phones are not intrinsically safe. A little spark can just lead to, and then a release of static energy. If the gas cylinder is leaking, the gas inside is static energy. So a little release of it, and then the phone not being intrinsically safe, that initial peak or ring from the phone, it can just lead to a fire. So like I said, there's a science behind it. So in order not to go in depth, just know that it is not good to receive or make calls in the kitchen while you're cooking with your gas burner. And then of course we have candles. Candles is an open fire. So if you're using a candle, make sure you don't leave it unattended. Where do you place the candle if you don't have a candle stand? A proper candle stand, not what we use as a makeshift candle stand here in Nigeria. So, or even if it's not for vision, maybe you're trying to be romantic, a candlelit dinner and all that. So in order for a contained or something that's supposed to lead to happiness to just go south, so if you're using candles either for a romantic dinner, or you're trying to use it for lighting, which is the initial original purpose for it, you need to make sure that your candle stand is an actual candle stand made for it. And then where do you put it? Don't leave it unattended. Don't keep candle on top. Some people put candle on top television. Oh, the television is bad, it's not working again. Like I said, there might be a broken circuit inside the sport electrical equipment, which made it not good again, in quotes. So get a proper candle stand for your candles, and make sure that you put it where make sure it is not left unattended to. And then what I want to call a little bit of fire risk assessment. So if you look at in your house, there are a lot of things that are combustible. Anything that's combustible and you're not making use of it, please remove it. Ensure that you don't have curtains covering electrical cables, or you don't have your rugs on top electrical wires, or maybe your kitchen, there's something, I mean, it's far-fetched, people will not have curtains in the kitchen, but in your kitchen, reduce the presence of combustible materials if you can, because I know sometimes, because of the way Nigeria is built, you might not be able to, you don't have a control over where you put your gas cylinder. But if you can, it is best if your gas cylinder is not in the kitchen, if it is far from the kitchen, and also the generator too. If you can, it is best not to have it close. If it's an upstairs, if you can put it downstairs or somewhere not close to, so that if peradventure a fire starts, it's something that can be contained at source and not easily spread. So these are some of the key pointers, because every other thing is surrounded around these points I have mentioned. So these are some of the key areas where fire can start from. And then, okay, cigarettes. If you smoke, or you have anybody around you who smokes, if you smoke at home, ensure that you put out your cigarettes before you throw it away. Before you throw it away, make sure the light goes off. So if you're tired, or you're feeling sick, or you're on sleepy medications that make you sleep, that's not the right time to smoke, because you don't want to sleep off while holding the cigarette in your hand, and then maybe the cigarette just drops on the rug, and then before you know, everything has gone south. Your next waking up might be on the hospital bed, and you're wondering, how did I get here? Yeah, so these are some of the areas we should look out for when, and of course, I'll say children. Let me just add it there. Even though children is an external factor, is a short factor. So if you have all these other ones I have listed, for example, that's why I said if you leave your candle on, don't leave your candle unattended. Children come and they're inquisitive. This thing, what can we do with it? And then before you know, they carry it and then they play with it. Children too, they are also coming to the cooking aspect. So you're cooking and then you leave your burner unattended, and your child enters and then starts fiddling with things. So children is just they're like a secondary factor, if I may say. So they are a secondary factor to the underlisted family factors.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Mrs. Marian, for that beautiful educative moment that we had just had with you now. Talking about children, I could remember when I was still very small. I can't forget. When I was still very small, we are so inquisitive, especially with the boys. We will take candle So we'll take matches and we'll just be playing with matches without knowing what the matches is meant for. Yes, me, I did it several times. We just take matches and we just be like, before they know it, after 2 days, matches has finished. You're gonna buy another matches again. After 2 days again, we'll still use the matches, just use it anyhow. We are not doing it. Sometimes there's a game we used to do there when we are still very small. We that we live in the rural areas, we know all these things. Let's gather, we know what they do. We will carry the matches, light them, put them for mouth, come bring out smoke like say we want drink cigar. That is being inquisitive as a little child. All these things can actually lead to fire. Talking about children, I could remember also when we were very young. There was a day that my friends, because there was no light in the community, and they wanted to switch on their generator. And because me, I was a very free person. I do charity a lot. Then what did I do? I went to our generator house. Oh. Little boy like me, I went to the generator house and I went to steal petrol for my friends so that they could hold their gen. When I stole the petrol, you know what I did? I did one foolish mistake. I went to keep the petrol in the library. My dad will now enter the library. I was like, what is smelling in this room? There is petrol inside this room. Imagine a small child that doesn't know that petrol can actually lead to fire in his home, kept petrol inside the library. Then it was later that my dad now traced the smell and now brought the petrol out. Thank God for my dad. And our library is very close to the kitchen. You know. I will have burned the whole place. Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Miriam. We are still coming back to you on the issue that you raised with us, because there are a lot of things that has to do with those things and we need to ask questions to get it clearer. I'm very sure Miss Zainab is here. I keep mentioning Mrs. Miriam. What have you done to me? Miss Zainab, are you there with us? Oh, okay.
Yes, I am.
Miss Zainab, are you there with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much for your patience. I know you have been waiting that when will this man tell me to talk now, but wait, we are all learning together. Thank you for your patience, Miss Miriam. Miss Zainab, Miss Miriam, see, I will see you to talk to Miss Miriam. There's an issue with me calling your name every time. So, Zainab.
Yes.
We've been talking about preventing accidents. Yes, we want to prevent accidents. We want to prevent fire from happening. Mrs. Miriam just highlighted to all those things that can lead to fire in our homes. Now, I would like to ask you, even if at the end of the day, we put all these control measures in place, and there is still an issue of fire, can you please tell us, what can we do when a fire actually starts after putting all these control measures in place? Over to you, Zainab.
Okay, thank you very much, Waliu. And so, like you said, if we put all the control measures in place and eventually the fire happens to start, so there are some times whereby you prevent, but then you can't exactly stop it from happening. One of the first rules I would say is that if you are not trained to fight a fire, or if you don't know how to, or if the fire, if at this point you need to be able to measure if is it safe for you to fight the fire. If it's not safe, please evacuate, find the nearest place out of the house. If it's possible, you shut the doors behind you so you can start the fire of oxygen, because for a fire to start, you need to have the source of fire, you need to have the oxygen, and you also need to have the fuel. So for if by time, so one of the key things that extinguishing fires, one of the key things it wants to do is to shut off one of the three sources of fire. So if you can take out oxygen from it, you're sure that the fire is going to go off. If you can take out the source of fire, or you can take out the fuel, you are sure that the fire is going to eventually get extinguished. So one of the things you should do when you see when the fire starts is you need to be very reasonable with it. Can you fight the fire? If your answer is no, please evacuate, shut the doors behind you, and call for help. Call for help immediately. And we have we have the firefighting services which you can call on to. And okay, so for the purpose of knowledge, and okay, you want to try to fight the fire, it's still a very small. So for example, like Mrs. Marian said, you are cooking, you are bleaching oil, and by the time the heat is too much, for example, you are trying to bleach palm oil, and then you eventually pour your pepper into it, and then you have fire come into the pan, and it looks almost like you're not getting the hang of it. One of the things you could do is it's advised to have a fire blanket in your kitchen, because as much as you can, when you have a fire blanket, there are videos online that you can watch on the technique to use to cover the fire. One of the things that the fire blanket will do for you is it shuts off the oxygen supply. So once you cover the fire, you have to cover it completely. Not so one of the things you want to do with a fire blanket is you don't want to go into it halfway. You don't want to get halfway and you say, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore. No, you need to go into it with as much confidence that you can actually extinguish the fire. So you cover it, and fire blankets are of course for small fires, not something that's, if for example you have 5 burners and it has expanded past 1 burner, and it has probably gone to like the 5 or 6 burners, and you want to use a fire blanket. If your fire blanket is not huge enough, you're not using a blanket to shut it off, it's almost impossible for you to do that. And of course we have different classes of extinguishers and all that. What most people endeavor to have in their house is DCP, that's dry chemical powder. That's what a lot of people endeavor to have at home. In the minimum, have DCP. And we have different classes of fire extinguishers. And so for for the powder extinguishers, it's almost like it's for the sake of we call it multi-purpose extinguisher. So for that would work, that would suffice in a whole lot of fires for you. And like I always tell, if you can't fight the fire, so please just back out, evacuate the building, shut the doors behind you, and call for help. And if you can, so there's this technique where you pick up your extinguisher, you pull the string, you aim at the base of the fire. That's the base, or the source, the fire source. You aim at the base of the fire, and you squeeze the trigger. There's this lever on top of the extinguisher, and then you sweep left and right, and be sure that if it's not, be sure to stay on, but to back the where the wind is coming from. So you don't want to be fighting, a fire that is going to blow the wind towards you. That's very unsafe for you to do. So where you see that it's unsafe for you to fight a fire, please just back out, shut the doors, and call for help. That will go a very long way. And for the sake of knowledge as well, we can also have some CO2, that's carbon, you can have CO2 fires, CO2 fire extinguishers at home. Yeah, you can have CO2 fire extinguisher at home. And so for those two, it will go a very long way. And in the minimum, you can have like a 3 kg CO2 at home, and you have maybe like a 6 kg DCP at home. And so for the powder extinguishers, they are designed to fight class A, B, and C fires, which includes solids, liquids, and gases, and all that. And so I think I'll give it on to Waliu now, what to do. So the question was what to do in case the fire starts. If it's a small fire like a pot, please use a fire blanket to cover it to shut off the oxygen supply. If it has expanded into a bigger fire, you can grab your fire extinguisher and you use the pass technique. A lot of houses now have sprinklers incorporated into them, and there's an alarm system. So there are mobile alarm systems that it doesn't necessarily have incorporated into your house. You can actually buy them individually if it's not your own home, if you rented a place. So you can have like mini fire alarm systems in the house which triggers. So for example, you have a child that just goes off and puts up a candle and then fire starts. If you have an alarm system, it's going to trigger, and that helps you contain the fire before the fire eventually erupts and becomes really huge and all that. So like I said, to reiterate, it's safe to have DCP, dry chemical powder. It's a multi-purpose extinguisher, and for add-on you can have your CO2 extinguisher as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that beautiful one that you just gave us now. As we talk and as we sweet oh. If fire start now, no be joke oh. So many people have died as a result of fire. Not fire on the street oh. Fire that starts from their homes. Let me use ourselves as an example. We have experienced fire like 2 times in our own very home. The first one, this is our cut-off session where they used to change current. Now I know in Nigeria we change from one line to another because we are looking for where the current is higher. And at the end of the day, that day no one was at home. It was our neighbor that observed smoke coming out from the back of our house that started shouting, fire, fire, Tiwole Alaji oh. You know all these local people, the way they shout, now not Tiwole Alaji. Thank God one thing we don't do for security reasons. One thing we don't do is that we don't actually lock our doors. Because of something like this, so that people will be able to help us in case anything unfavorable happens. And those around us, they are very close, they watch over our house. At the end of the day, they enter the house and they are able to, one way or the other, extinguish the fire. Now, this fire didn't come from gas, so it didn't come from kerosene, it didn't come from petrol. It came from electricity. The other one too is very related to electricity, which happened to a small generator that we use for our mosque. That very day, the generator was working, though even from afar, from the sound, you know that this generator is tired of living. They have used the generator for more than 10 years. Even the generator want to park and go home. So this very day, the generator was still working. It was still working, but it wasn't supplying electricity. So we thought it was one of those normal faults now, normal issues that will happen, normal faults. Maybe a cut out somewhere. It was when my younger sister got to the backyard, wanted to pick something, they saw this fire burning seriously. The fire was burning seriously. By then, the generator was already off. The fire was burning seriously. When I mean burning seriously, it burnt the pillar that was in between the generator house and the concrete were weakening and they were falling. Even one miracle happened that very day. We stored petrol in that same generator house, but at the corner. And you know what? The plastic of the petrol was already melting. It just remained just little more melting for it to just get to where the petrol is, and the secondary explosion will just start immediately. We were unconscious. We didn't know what to do. We are running at scatter, I don't even know. At the end of the day, we were able to extinguish the fire. But there's a popular saying, prevention is better than cure. It is better to find a way to prevent this thing from happening in the first place than to now say you want to start curing it when it happens. So, I mentioned the issue of electricity. It's very important for it's possible for us to be able to prevent fire in our homes. Putting proactive measures in place is very important for our electricity, electric current, electric connections, electrical installations in our homes, the connections to get engulfed in fire. But what can we do? What can we do to make sure that this cannot happen? Is to make sure that our connection are being connected by a competent person. Using the right appliances, using the right cables, the right wires, not the fake ones. Most of us are used to this habit where they will tell you that this wire costs 1,500, this one is 1,000. You will go for the one of 1,000 naira because it is cheaper. It is cheaper. You are looking for cheaping things that are cheap. At the end of the day, you end up spending more when the fire happens. Yes, we have one of our latecomers, Mr. Emmanuel, is here. Please be patient with us. We are discussing. So when it comes to your time, we will let you know. Thanks for coming late. So as I was saying, this particular, please, okay, you should have called. You should have called. Yeah. Please kindly mute the session. So, and what I was saying is, we could have prevented, because at the end of the day, you end up spending more money. So what we are saying in essence is that make sure that your electrical installation is being done by a competent person. Don't just someone electrician somewhere that doesn't have the experience of doing the job, but because he's asking for something small. Mr. Emmanuel, kindly mute yourself, because he's asking for a little amount. You think that okay, it's cheaper. Instead of you to use a cutout of 10,000 naira, you saw another cutout of 5,000 naira. The connection is poor. You observe that this connection is poor. Kindly change it and use a very good connection for electrical connections in your home. This is the beginning of the very first part of preventing electrical fire in your home. Then after that, you check your connection. Some of us will just plug ordinary phone. There will be a change. There will be a change in the strength of the current that is being supplied. Is a very good example of a bad connection. We should learn to always change this. Please, if you have questions, kindly drop your questions in the comment section. Kindly drop your comment in the comment section. Thank you. I think I'm not doing mistake. When this has been corrected, the next thing we need to do is to check our electrical connections regularly. If you observe that with part of our electrical connection, our socket, our fuse is not in good condition, change them immediately. Stop the habit of managing. Some of us will manage. We will manage our electric cooker, our boiler. We will manage it. The electric cooker will shock you. You will receive shock from your electric cooker, and you will still be managing it. It is very bad. It is very bad. Anytime there is a fault in your electrical connection, it is your duty to make sure that you change it immediately. Get it repaired. Like we say, prevention is better than cure. That is for electrical fires. Next time, if I have the time, we will discuss about other things that can lead to fire and how we can prevent them. Our speaker, Miss Marian and Zainab, they have discussed about this, but we need to actually elaborate more on them, because I know they have a feeling that they don't have time. But there's a time today for us to discuss. We have an hour to discuss so that we will learn a lot about fire safety in our home. We are discussing about fire. On our next episode, we'll be discussing about another part of safety in our home. But today, we're talking about fire. So now, we'll be going straight to Mr. Oveje Emmanuel. And this time around, you'll be elaborating on what I'm saying now. And the question is, can fire be prevented? How can we prevent? Now, Miss Marian has mentioned to us those things that can lead to fire. And he also highlighted one way or the other. He tried to highlight some things. I know he could have done more because of time. He actually shortened it. Those things that can lead to fire and how we can prevent them. Our beautiful Zainab now told us on if there's a fire, what are those control measures? So that is two extreme ends. Now, in the middle, how do we prevent? Is it possible to prevent fire? And if possible, how do we prevent fire from happening? Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Emmanuel.
All right,
Mr.
thank you,
Emmanuel,
Mr. Wali. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, thank you. I've actually been online and I followed Mrs. Miriam, and will sue you for always calling Mrs. Miriam instead of Mrs. Enab. I don't know what kind of reaction is taking place there, but you have to be guided. Actually, on the causes of fire, she actually elaborated on that aspect.
I think we are missing a connection here. When Mr. Emmanuel comes back, we'll continue to hear from Mr. Emmanuel. Mr. Emmanuel, are you there? I don't think Mr. Emmanuel is there.
Are you with me? I'm with you.
Yeah, please kindly continue.
Yeah. All right. I said as safety professionals, we believe accidents are either caused by unsafe acts and unsafe conditions. And if these are not attended to, or if they are not checked, you see that they degenerate into accidents. I'll go through some of the causes which Miss Miriam actually highlighted, and I'll look at the controls for each of them. She spoke of gas. Some of the causes. She talked of cooking gas. We are used to bleaching oil. Yes, it's normal we cook. We know that fire. In fact, when you are using an open fire such as gas, stove, or heater, as the case may be, you see that that's you dealing with fire itself. Just that in this case, the fire is controlled. So when accidents happen is when this controlled fire goes out of hand, when they are no longer controlled. That's when you see people shouting fire, fire, fire up and down. Now what do you do in such scenario? She highlighted something. She said for the gas, it's safe and it's better you position your gas outside. If you could remember, another thing is cooking inside for those living inside a one room apartment. Wally, I know you can remember one point or the other. There was a scenario which someone was cooking inside the house and he slept off. And you know, with that, thank God he didn't get out of hand. I think the guy was able to wake up and control that. But in such a scenario, hello?
Who was the guy? Who was the guy?
Well, yeah, I'm not serious. I'm giving you an example here. You're asking me what is that. I'm giving you an example here. You're asking me a question. You have to listen here. Yeah. So yes, we know the guy. So just leave it like that. So in such a scenario, imagine you cooking. You're stressed out, and you came back from work trying to let me put one or two things together, and you sleep off. Imagine staying in a one-room apartment where, peradventure, maybe where your gas is directly under your wardrobe. I think you can easily see what will go wrong if that fire goes out. And another thing we have to look out for. She talked on electrical appliances, faulty electrical appliances. Like you said, the truth is, if it's not good, don't use it. As humans generally, we have conscience, and if you are at that point of doing something, you know your mind on its own, it tells you that it's not safe, but that's how they do them. After all, you don't tell what they do them. We tend to overlook it. If your appliance is not good, you don't have to manage it. That's just the truth. Once it's not good, replace faulty appliances. If the cables are peeled, you know, one thing about peeled cables is not just even about the fire itself. They can lead to electric shock. And you know, in a situation where perhaps there's water on the floor, and before you know, anybody that comes in contact with the water on the floor, where there's a presence of exposed cable, before you know, there will be electric shock, and you think there's anointing. It's not anointing, it's electric that is shocking people. So all this we need to look out for. And the case of fire extinguisher, I don't know how many of us actually have fire extinguishers in our home. If you look at it, what are we even using it for? I remember when I was doing my ISPON, one of my colleague, he was like, in his compound, he was teaching his family how to use an extinguisher, and they were laughing at him. So and you know that these things are necessary in case of emergency. The extinguisher is just is to fight the fire at the initial stage, because if a fire is being attacked at the initial stage, you see that you saved a whole lot of wastage of damage to properties. So that's why even if you are fighting fire, it's best done at the initial stage. There's a saying that goes, a stitch in time saves nine. When you talk of fire, that is the instance where it comes in. She also talked of overloading. When you buy some electrical sockets, especially, I don't know if anyone has noticed it. When you plug iron in it, especially those ones that are very light, you see that the cable is kind of hot. You observe it that it's hot. Such a scenario, it's melting, and you're overloading that socket at that point in time. We might use it and say, after all, I've been using it. Something is going on while you're using it. That thing is melting, and before you know, in the presence of adequate oxygen and fuel, when we are talking of fuel in this case, we are talking of anything that supports burning. It could be your plastic, it could be your clothes, it could be fuel itself, it could be oil, all this.
It could be the electric current itself. It could be the electric current.
Yes, yes, anything, yes, that supports burning. Before you know, that's it. With adequate amount of oxygen, with also the heat source, the fire has started. So, and Ms. Zainab actually highlighted it that to fight fire, you have to remove at least one of these factors, because fire is the chemical reaction between heat, oxygen, and fuel. And once one of these factors is removed, you see that you are putting out the fire. Making of course while in the kitchen. Hello? I'm with you, Mr. Yeah, making of course while in the kitchen, it's not safe. There's a saying that says it's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to hear I'm sorry, or this is what happened. Prevention is always, and is always, every time, is better than cure. You don't want to be saying sorry for something that can be prevented. So why not prevent it instead of waiting for somebody that will come and tell you that the damage has been done. It is safer when we obey little safety instruction. Safety is not hard, it's common sense, is what you see. Another thing, you should always let's going back to the socket. I think when we are loading, well, if you can remember, then when we were working on site, you don't just plug anything. So I'm going back to the electrical aspect now. You don't just plug anything. You check the capacity of what you are plugging and what you are plugging it to. Why? Because so that to avoid overloading. Now, in some homes these days, you have smoke detectors. I don't know, in Lagos or in Nigeria, there are only few houses in which you can see that. But in a case where you have smoke detectors, what you are supposed to do, you have to check these smoke detectors always. You check them monthly if possible, to ensure that they are working, so that even in case of a fire, they don't stop you from, they actually work. Another thing you look out for is that routing of cables. You don't route your cables along combustible materials. Why? If, for example, putting your cable under rug, it's not safe. If it's kind of a breach with your cable, and the cable is exposed, or there's fire, before you know, the rug there already is a fuel for you. Yeah. And yes.
Under rug
and another thing, yes. Yeah, you also spoke of source of fire. That's talking of our lighters and our matches. Children are very, very inquisitive, and they want to learn. I know you smoked while you were small because you were putting that matches in your mouth and you were feeling like a big boy. But we thank God that you are still alive to share the story. As adults, we need to properly store these things. You don't leave cables anyhow. Lighters and matches, because you have to keep them out of reach of children, because these children might be playing with it, and for example it falls off. There's a way the matches normally burns, and it burns to the extent that you can't hold it again. Once you can't control it, you do what? You throw it off. While if a child should do that at home, that's a potential fire waiting. So such sources of fire should be controlled. You should ensure you store them properly. And also, talking of gas, yes, let me just round up with the gas. We should ensure we try to shut off our gas cylinders when we are done at the close of the day, no matter how tired you are. I'm telling you, I was discussing with some safety professionals the other day, and my manager, to be precise, and she was telling me of a case where a nephew came in, and the cylinder left the cylinder open, and thank God nothing happened. That's how the gas leaked throughout the night. So in such a scenario, if the cylinder itself, the gas cylinder itself was shut off, you see that even if anybody goes to open the oven, you see that the gas won't just go off like that. So, and you won't create an unsafe condition for any accidents to happen. So we have to ensure, one thing we have to ensure as safety professionals or as persons living, is that no matter how little it is, all these little home checks, we have to put it in place, because as I always say, a stitch in time saves nine. If we take all these control measures
Hello.
go further because of
Even
our
though,
time. Are you with me?
yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Yes, yes. Okay, all
So
right.
thank you, Dad. Emmanuel. That fire extinguisher with your car is useful one day. Oh. Trying to round up this session because of time, we are right behind schedule. There's a beautiful question being asked here which I would like to elaborate. The question goes thus: how can one maintain fire extinguisher? Is it advisable to extinguish fire using water and detergent or the use of sand? This is part of those things I would like to elaborate with us now. To maintain your fire extinguisher, there are fire extinguishing service agents, or what will I call them, that helps in servicing fire extinguishers. It is advisable you service your fire extinguisher twice a year, or better still once in a year. It's very important. If you are using a DCP, a dry chemical powder, the one with a tiny nozzle, that very one with a tiny nozzle, there's a grade there that tells you if it's under pressure or over pressure. It has to be on the green range. Just check your fire extinguisher. You will see a green. You will see the green, a green kind of sign that tells you that the indicator is on the green, which tells you it is good. If it's outside the green, if it's higher than the green, it means that it's over pressure and can be very dangerous. And if it's under the green, that means that it's under pressure and it's definitely useless. So what we do is to make sure that it's on the green and you service it twice or once in a year. Is it advisable to extinguish fire using water and detergent or the use of sand? You don't extinguish every kind of fire the same way. This thing almost got a whole house burnt in my neighborhood. Gas was on fire, as in cooking gas was on fire. They did a very silly mistake of not repairing the nozzle. They failed to repair the control, and the gas was leaking, and it continued to leak, and they were managing it until the day God of no management said they are not managing this again, and the whole thing got burnt. When the fire started, the man took water, just like you are acting now, and he poured water on it. A rigorous reaction occurred. An explosive reaction occurred. A contumelious reaction occurred, and the fire continued to bloom, dancing all the way to the roof. Dancing all the way to the roof, and the fire was really serious. What happened? They used fire to try to extinguish gas. You don't use fire to extinguish gas. You don't use fire to extinguish oil. If your cooking oil get engulfed in fire, take a wet towel,
You don't use water
that
rather.
or a fire blanket, a wet towel, and use it
Yeah.
to cover it completely. If it's your pot, use your cover the pot to cover it completely. It will extinguish immediately. Another thing is electrical fire. You don't use you don't use water to extinguish electrical fire. You see water
Yeah.
coming out from your socket. You know that water on itself conducts electricity. You're not using now you want to use water to extinguish that kind of fire. It will give you serious shock. Like Mr. Emmanuel said, it don't look like praise and worship. It don't look like miracle session. It is electric shock, serious shock. So you don't use water to extinguish electric fire. The best thing that you can have, that I can advise in our homes, is to have a fire extinguisher, a DCP fire extinguisher. If you can't have a DCP, this fire extinguisher comes with its pros and cons. Because when you use them on some appliances, they can damage the appliance, but it's better than damaging
Yeah.
someone's life. If you
Yeah.
don't have a DCP, it is better you have sand, all this bucket, all this pail you use now, we call it pail, all this metallic bucket, let it be loaded with sand, and at the early stage you apply them at the early stage. Use force, take the sand and use force to pour the sand where the fire is coming from. It will extinguish. Using foam, detergent and water is also, it's called foam. They are foam extinguishers too. It's also a process, and the principle behind using foam and water is that when you use foam, it covers the area where the fire is coming from. Remember that oxygen is needed for fire, that is the air. So when you use foam, it kind of creates a kind of film, not film that we used to wash, a kind of protection that prevents oxygen from entering, and with that it will extinguish the fire. But to advise us, get a fire extinguisher to be prepared in case of fire. Don't let us wait till there is a fire before we start running from A, B, C, D. If we can get a fire extinguisher in our car because we don't want nobody to disturb us, why can't we have a fire extinguisher in our home that we are living, that we stay 24 hours, that we keep our family in case a fire happens? It costs less to get a fire extinguisher, but it costs more to recover from a fire that happens. There's no time I would have elaborated on issues that surrounds use of gas. At design stage, if we are building our homes, let's make sure that there are 2 exits in the kitchen. Let's make sure that we design our home that our cylinders should be outside. Our electrical connections should be perfect. All these things are needed to prevent accident, to prevent fire from happening. This is what we have for us today on Safety Podcast with Waliola. But before we end it, in few minutes, few seconds, Miss Marian, are you there? Marian, are you there with us?
I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Is Marian there with us?
Yeah, she can hear you. She's there. She can hear you.
Yes. A very quick question. A very quick question for you to round up this session, please. I would like to ask, there's a kind of drill that we do at the workplace where we train people to be ready for fire. In case of the fire, a kind of household drill or emergency drill in case of fire or anything. Is it possible for us to have that kind of thing in each household? Maybe the landlord will be the chief drill coordinator, or is it possible to have that kind of setup in a community where we teach people how to prepare for fire?
As funny as it sounds, yes, it is very possible. It's even more. It should be more applicable in community buildings, because if you're living in your house and you don't have that kind of drill, we assume that if there's a fire, you should be able to act. Even though Studies have shown that during emergencies, people don't even know. People who originally knew what to do don't know what to do in times of emergency. So yes, it is actually possible for there to be a drill for you to know, especially if you're living in the topmost floor. You know, safety is proactive, safety is not reactive. Especially if you live at the topmost floor. What happens if the fire starts from under? What do? You can't you escape your only escape route is downstairs, and then the fire is burning downstairs. You upstairs, what do you do? But if you have planned for something like this before, you can have like a rope or something you can use to let yourself down from up, depending on how far above the ground you live. But yes, to your question, it is very possible, and it is actually advisable. It is more advisable for people who live in communal buildings, like you said, landlord, than even those living in single apartments. So yes, it is very possible. They should do it just the way we do it in commercial buildings, in private buildings. Yes, you should do it. There should be drills. Everybody should
Okay.
know what to do in case there's a fire.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you all for your contribution today. I really wish I can see you some other time so that we continue to have this beautiful discussion. The issue of fire is very serious and we need to take it seriously. We are going to stop here today on Safety Podcast with Waliullah. Kindly remember that it's all about safety. Do take some few minutes to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've sent the link to us. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, follow us on all our social media handles so that we continue to educate ourselves, enlighten ourselves about health and safety. The safer you are, the longer you live. There's no two way about it. Thank you all for coming to this session. We appreciate your presence. And next week, 2 weeks time, anytime we want to have another kind of safety discussion on Podbean on our live podcast session, we'll all let you know. Thank you all for coming to this section. We really appreciate your coming. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate you giving us audience. It shows that we are just one family. We are just starting this, and I pray that we spend more time together to learn about safety. Thank you, Mrs. Marian. Thank you, Zaina, for coming. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. Thank you, Mr. Aziz. Thank you, Mr. Lamide. Thank you, Mr. Denga, and every other person who has taken their time to come to this session. See you all next time. Bye.